Clara May slammed her fist against the heavy oak door. "Put the dress back on," her father's voice thundered from the next room. "I won't," she shot back, the words raw, brittle. "You don't have a choice," he said, each syllable sharp like a whip. "Then break my legs," she spat. Silence stretched for a heartbeat. Her mother's shadow lingered in the corner, silent, hands clasped tight as if holding herself together by sheer will. The marriage contract lay on the table, folded in waiting, a sheet of paper heavier than any iron chain. Beside it, a sheriff's badge gleamed faintly, catching the light like a warning. The groom's name wasn't spoken. He was only the governor's nephew, a man whose wealth and influence reached into every corner of the county, a ghost that dictated her fate from afar. "You think running will change anything?" her father barked, footsteps thudding closer. "I'll run before the sun rises," she said, voice steady, but her heart hammering. He slammed the table, rattling plates, the sound echoing through the small room. "Your debts, your family's honor, your life," he said. "It doesn't matter," she replied. Her mother's eyes softened for a moment, a fleeting mercy. "Run if you're going to," her mother whispered, "don't come back." That single line hung heavier than any lock on the door. Clara May's knuckles were raw, her fingertips bleeding slightly where she had tried to pry the wood, but she didn't pause. She vaulted onto the windowsill, shoving glass aside. Pain shot across her arm, but she didn't flinch. Blood was nothing compared to what awaited her if she stayed. Outside, the morning was still, the mist hugging the land like a cloak, masking her flight. Footsteps crashed behind her. "Clara May, stop," her father roared. She didn't. She ran. Every step over the frost-bitten grass felt like leaving pieces of herself behind. Her dress snagged on brambles, tearing at the hem, but she ignored it. The main road stretched ahead, empty, quiet except for the faint sound of a distant engine. Her breath puffed in short clouds. She thought of the papers, the badge, the power waiting to swallow her whole. She thought of her mother, standing silent, powerless to stop the weight of tradition. Her father's shadow loomed in memory as she sprinted, but she focused on the space ahead, the unknown beyond the horizon. Her feet pounded like a heartbeat in rhythm with her fear and determination. Headlights sliced through the morning fog. She froze. They were too close. Panic surged, but a voice cut through it. "You running towards something, or from it?" The words were calm, measured, unafraid. Clara May spun to see a truck idling by the roadside. The driver's door opened, hand extended. "Get in," he said. No questions, no judgment. She didn't hesitate. Inside, the cabin smelled of leather and smoke. Silence, tense, waiting. "You married?" he asked. "No," she said. "Engaged?" "Not anymore." "Good," he said, and the word carried no warmth, just acknowledgement. His name was Caleb Ward. Rancher. Man who didn't bend to the governor's reach, who refused badges and authority. His presence was a promise of safety, but a warning that protection had its own rules. The truck moved. Dust rose behind them like smoke from a funeral pyre. "You got papers on you?" he asked. "No," she said. "Enemies?" "Yes." "Armed?" "Yes." He nodded slowly. "Good." They didn't speak after that. The headlights behind them multiplied, ghostly in the fog, but he didn't panic. He drove with deliberate calm, each turn of the wheel measured. A scar ran across his hand, pale against the tan skin. Clara May wondered what story it told. He didn't volunteer. She didn't ask. Trust, fragile and untested, filled the space between them. The ranch gate came into view, creaking under the weight of history, of fences built and broken, of laws followed and defied. He stopped, put the truck in park. "Welcome," he said, his voice even, unshaken. The gate swung closed behind them, the lock clicking in place, final and resolute. Inside, the house waited, quiet, memory-soaked, windows like dark eyes. "No one steps on this land without my say," Caleb said. "And if they do?" "They leave different." He placed a rifle on the table, not threatening, only present. Clara May's arm throbbed, her dress torn, her breath coming fast, but for the first time, she felt a flicker of control. "I won't belong to you," she said. "You won't," he replied. Outside, the world continued, waiting, but inside, for a moment, she ran unchained. Clara May's chest heaved as the truck's engine hummed, the headlights behind them fading into the morning mist. Caleb didn't glance at her, only kept his hands steady on the wheel. "You running towards something," he said again, his voice calm, not pressing. She swallowed. "Both," she admitted. Silence filled the cab, heavy, alive. She studied him without words, the burn scar across his hand, the way his eyes didn't waver, the lines etched into his face like a map of battles fought and lost. The road stretched ahead, empty, dusty, edged with fields that looked abandoned yet held secrets. She wanted to ask who he was, what drove him, but words felt dangerous here, and she didn't trust herself to speak without tremor. He didn't ask more. He didn't need to. "Where to?" she finally said, trying to make it casual. "Home," he said. His voice had no warmth, no softness, just certainty. The word felt like a shield. She didn't push. The truck climbed a hill, the fog thickening, hiding them from the world. "Why help me?" she asked, breaking the silence. Caleb didn't answer at first. The truck rattled over loose stones. Then he said, "Because I know what they do to women who don't say yes." His voice held no judgment, only truth. Clara May's fingers clenched the seat. "I'm not afraid," she said. "You should be," he countered, almost casually, eyes forward. She turned to look out the window, trying to spot the distant shadows of pursuit, but the fog swallowed everything. No shapes, no lights, nothing but quiet and the hum of the engine. He broke the silence again. "You got papers? No enemies?" "Yes." "Armed?" "Yes." Short words, clipped, like rifle shots. He nodded. "Good." That was it. That was all the reassurance he offered, and it was enough. Clara May felt a strange sense of safety, not from comfort, but from recognition. He saw her as she was, raw and unshaped, and didn't flinch. The headlights behind them multiplied for a brief moment, shadows of a threat pressing closer, but Caleb didn't swerve. They passed a barn half collapsed, a fence line splintered from age or fire. The land was haunted by time, by choices made and consequences avoided, yet Caleb drove through it like a man who had claimed it for himself alone. The ranch gate emerged through the fog, tall, wooden, and creaking on its hinges. Caleb slowed, then stopped. "Here," he said, voice even. He climbed out and opened the passenger door. Clara May hesitated. The morning fog carried a chill that made her skin prickle. The ground under her boots felt solid yet strange, as if stepping onto this land would imprint her forever. She slid out of the truck, brushing dirt and broken leaves from her dress. "No one steps on this land without my say," Caleb said, the rifle already slung over his shoulder. "And if they do?" she asked quietly. "They leave different," he said. That was a promise and a warning wrapped into a single sentence. She nodded without speaking, feeling the weight of his words, heavy and grounded. Inside, the house smelled of smoke and leather, of memory preserved in silence. The walls were lined with photographs and old letters, shelves crowded with relics of lives not entirely gone. The floorboards creaked under her weight. She wanted to ask where she fit, what her role was, but the question died in her throat. Caleb set a rifle on the table. Not to threaten, only to remind. She stared at it. "You expect something from me," she said finally. "Work," he said. "That's all?" "That's all." Short sentences. No explanations. She understood instinctively. He didn't need her submission. he didn't need her fear. He needed her presence to be real, to act, to matter. Clara May found herself drawn to a covered well outside, just beyond the porch. "What's in there?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Caleb glanced at it, expression unreadable. "History," he said. That one word held centuries, perhaps, compressed into a shadowed circle of stone. She didn't ask more. Inside, the well was locked, the cover heavy. She could feel the weight of all things hidden, of secrets buried and forgotten, and a shiver ran down her spine. Caleb didn't see it, or if he did, he ignored it. Some things, he seemed to say, were better left for later. The morning stretched into afternoon. Clara May cleaned the small kitchen while Caleb inspected fences outside. They didn't speak. Words were unnecessary, their silence was a language of its own. She noticed the old burn scar again, imagined a story she wouldn't ask for, a past full of ghosts. Finally, she asked, "Why don't you wear a badge?" "Badges tie men to things they shouldn't carry," he said, returning inside to check on her. "I don't kneel to power," he added simply. That sentence carried more weight than any gun, any contract, any threat that might come from the outside world. She understood. He offered no protection in name, only in fact. He offered her the chance to exist without ownership, without being claimed, without fear of silence. Evening came. Fog rolled back in from the fields. The gate creaked in the wind. Caleb leaned against the porch post, rifle slung casually. Clara May stood beside him. "They'll find me," she said. "They always do," he replied. No one else spoke. The headlights that haunted her before were gone, or perhaps merely waiting. Either way, she felt, for the first time, that she had chosen something real. Not safety, not escape, but recognition, understanding, the beginning of her own power. The land around them was quiet, but alive, memory and threat and possibility all tangled in the same morning mist. They stood side by side, watching, waiting, breathing in the silence like a weapon ready for use. Clara May didn't speak, but she didn't have to. Caleb's presence alone said everything. She was not property. She was not hunted. She was real. The ranch settled into a tense quiet as the sun dipped lower, painting long shadows across the fields. Clara May followed Caleb inside, her boots scuffing the worn floorboards. He didn't glance at her, only moved with a steady purpose, checking the windows, the locks, the rifles lined along the wall. "Protection isn't free," he said abruptly, voice low, even. She stopped, searching his face. "I didn't ask for it," she said, but her words trembled. He shook his head. "You already did. By coming here. By trusting me, even a little." The silence that followed was heavier than any conversation. It wasn't judgment. It wasn't approval. It was the truth. Clara May's fingers traced the edge of the counter, imagining the sheriff, the governor's nephew, her father, all waiting out there somewhere. "You expect something from me," she said finally. He looked at her directly this time, eyes steady, unflinching. "Work," he said. "Simple. Harsh. What kind of work?" "Whatever keeps this place yours to stand in, not theirs to take." Short words, blunt. She nodded. She understood. She didn't need comfort. She needed clarity. The weight of freedom and danger pressed on her at the same time, almost unbearably. Caleb moved to the rifles. He lifted one, testing the weight. "They'll come with papers first," he said, placing it back down. "Then with threats. Then with fire." She swallowed, listening. "And if they do?" she asked quietly. He didn't answer right away, only gestured to the windows, to the long fence lines, to the ridge beyond. "We fight," he said finally. "And if we can't?" She caught a flicker of something rare in his eyes. Hesitation. "Then we survive anyway," he said. The words were simple, but the promise behind them carried the weight of every battle he had fought alone. Later, while she cleaned the kitchen, she asked cautiously, "Why help me? You could have just watched them catch me." He didn't pause, only kept his hands moving over the rifles. "Because I know what they do to women who refuse," he said. Clara May's breath hitched. "Your wife?" she asked, almost whispering. His hand stilled, the weight of memory pressing down on him. "She didn't get a choice either," he said, voice low. "The sheriff ruled it an accident. I didn't. She didn't need more." The space between them filled with unspoken understanding. Both had been hunted, both had been cornered, both had survived. The well outside called to her, its circular shadow dark against the fading light. "What's in there?" she asked. Caleb's face was unreadable. "History," he said. She nodded, sensing that some things weren't meant to be questioned yet. Inside, the well was covered, locked, a monument to the past, to buried secrets, to stories waiting for the right moment to surface. She imagined letters, belongings, perhaps even bones, long forgotten but not gone. Caleb's silence said she wasn't ready to know, and she trusted him. Footsteps sounded behind the house. She spun, heart hammering. Caleb was already moving, hand on a rifle. A farmhand appeared, carrying firewood. The tension didn't leave until he stepped past them. She realized she had been holding her breath. Caleb didn't comment. Threats weren't always shouted. Sometimes, they were just present, waiting in the shadows. She felt it in the shifting wind, in the creak of boards, in the distant hum of engines, and she understood, safety here was fragile, earned every second, and not guaranteed. Night fell fully, draping the ranch in darkness. Clara May lit a lantern and moved through the house, checking windows, doors, locks. Caleb followed silently, never telling her to stop, never instructing, only observing. "They'll try tomorrow," he said at last. "Why?" she asked. "Because they always do," he said, eyes distant. Her mother's words came back, "Run if you're going to. Don't come back." She hadn't realized she'd run into a place where running wasn't the point anymore. Survival was. Autonomy was. The chance to act, to decide, to stand was worth more than escape. They ate in silence. The meal was simple: bread, meat, coffee black. Caleb's hands moved mechanically, cutting slices, pouring drinks. Clara May wanted to speak, to ask about the land, about the house, about the well. But every word felt fragile, like glass underfoot. He broke the quiet first. "You don't need me to tell you what's coming," he said. "I do," she admitted. "Then watch," he said, and the words weren't cruel, just matter of fact. "Watch," he implied. "Learn. Prepare. Endure." Hours later, she stood near the porch, looking out over the fence lines, the ridges, the fog that had returned like a ghost. Caleb joined her, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning. "You think this is safe?" she asked. "Not safe," he said. "Safe is dead. This is survival." She nodded, feeling a strange surge of something new: control, clarity, purpose. The fear that had gripped her chest since the locked door was still there, but it had a shape now. It had boundaries. She was not a paper to be signed. She was not property. She was someone who could stand, even here, even against them. The night deepened. Lanterns glowed softly inside the house, casting shadows across old photographs and letters. Outside, the wind whispered across the fields, carrying with it memory, threat, and the faint scent of smoke from distant fires. Clara May didn't flinch. She didn't need to. Caleb's presence alone was enough to anchor her, enough to give her the courage to keep moving forward, to prepare, to survive. She wasn't free yet, not entirely, but she had begun. And sometimes, beginning was all that mattered. The morning came gray and still, a quiet that felt wrong in the marrow. Clara May had barely slept. The fire in the hearth had died overnight, leaving the kitchen cold. Caleb had been up before her, checking fences, testing locks, scanning the horizon. She followed him silently, footsteps careful on the creaking boards. "They'll come with papers first," he said, voice low, eyes on the far ridge. "Then with threats. Then with fire." She nodded, feeling the weight of each word like stones pressing against her chest. She wanted to ask what happened last time, what they'd do if he wasn't here, but words died before leaving her lips. Caleb didn't need her fear, he needed her focus. The first sound came hours later. Engines, distant but growing louder. Dust clouds rose from the road, thin at first, then thickening, swallowing the fields. Clara May's pulse jumped. "They're here," she whispered. Caleb didn't flinch. He simply lifted his rifle, checked the chamber, and said, "They always come." She nodded, biting her lip. "What if they take me?" "They won't," he said. The words weren't a promise. They were a fact. He didn't ask if she believed him. She had to. The sheriff arrived first. 3 men, their boots kicking dust, papers clutched in shaking hands. "Miss Clara May," the sheriff called, voice official, yet strained. She didn't answer. Caleb stepped in front of her. "She doesn't respond to whistles," he said calmly. The sheriff's eyes flicked to him. "You're harboring her," he said. "Not your business," Caleb replied. Rapid-fire words, clipped, sharp. Clara May stayed silent, watching, listening. The sheriff held up the papers. "You're legally bound by signed parental contract," he said. Clara May stepped forward for the first time, voice steady. "I didn't sign it." "Your father did." "That's not my name." "It's your blood," he countered. Caleb's hands flexed around the rifle, not raised, but ready. "She's under my roof," he said. "Not your wife. Not your business." The sheriff's hand hovered near his hip. Threat barely hidden. Clara May's heart pounded. "I am not livestock," she said. Her voice was low, blunt, undeniable. The sheriff stared at her, measuring. Cold eyes, legal power pressed in the air like a weight. He didn't move. Not yet. Caleb stepped forward and took the papers, holding them out. "Paper burns easy," he said. Then he dropped them in the hearth, letting the flames consume them. Smoke curled up, thick and dark, carrying the smell of ash into her lungs. She watched silently, feeling a strange mix of relief and dread. The sheriff turned away, muttering under his breath, leaving them with a warning: protection expires. Engines kicked up dust again as the deputies retreated to the road. Clara May swallowed hard, feeling the weight of every glance, every threat, every silent judgment still lingering in the air. Then fire. It started at the fence line, small at first, smoke curling in pale spirals, then licking the dry grass, hungry. Clara May grabbed a bucket instinctively. "Stop," Caleb said sharply. "Let me know," she said. "I can do this." Flames danced across the fence, small tongues of orange and red. She filled a bucket from the nearby trough, water sloshing over the edge. Caleb grabbed another, moving beside her. Silence between them was broken only by the crackle of fire. "They won't stop," she whispered, eyes wide. "They never do," he replied, muscles tense, face set. Together, they fought the blaze, throwing water, stomping sparks, working in rhythm, wordless yet communicating every action, every instinct. Smoke burned her eyes. Ash fell like snow across her hair and shoulders. The fence smoldered, a scar marking the land. Caleb stood beside her, breathing hard. "This is only the beginning," he said. She nodded, understanding in a way that didn't need explanation. The sheriff, the governor's nephew, her father, they were all threats still waiting, still circling, still legal and illegal weapons pressed against her life. And still, for the first time, she felt a measure of control. Flames died down, embers glowing weakly. They were both soaked, exhausted, yet alive. The land had witnessed their fight. Later, Caleb led her back inside. The smell of smoke hung heavy. He stripped the water-soaked coat from her shoulders. "They'll come again," he said. She didn't argue. She didn't need to. "I'm ready," she said quietly. Caleb didn't respond. He simply nodded. They moved through the house in silence, checking locks, windows, the hidden corners of memory. The well outside drew her gaze again, dark and mysterious. "Not tonight," Caleb said, noticing her eyes. "Tomorrow." She nodded. Some things were still dangerous to touch. Some secrets required patience. The kitchen was quiet except for the soft drip of water from the sink. Clara May washed the soot from her hands, watching it swirl down the drain. Each dark streak seemed to carry fragments of her fear, fragments of their threats, fragments of the past. Caleb leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "They think fear owns you," he said. "It doesn't." She didn't answer, but she felt it. Ownership was a concept she had rejected the moment she ran through the window. Survival was not passive. It was active. It required fire, vigilance, and refusal. Evening descended, folding the land into shadow. The distant road was empty, but Clara May didn't trust the silence. Caleb lit the lanterns inside, shadows dancing across old photographs and letters, a past she didn't yet understand. "You'll need to watch," he said, voice low. "Learn. Endure." She nodded, feeling a strange surge of determination. The sheriff, the governor's nephew, the threat in every formal word, none of it would bend her anymore. She was standing. Not hiding. Not begging. Standing. Outside, the wind whispered across the fields. Smoke from the fence still lingered, faint now, curling in lazy tendrils. Clara May stared at the horizon, listening to the silence, to the creaking of boards, to the whispering wind. Caleb joined her, shoulders squared, eyes scanning the ridges. "They'll test you," he said. "And if I falter?" she asked. "Then you will not," he said. Words simple, blunt, heavy with truth. She felt the ground beneath her feet, the weight of her own choices, the sharp clarity of survival. She wasn't free yet. Not fully. But she had begun to own her fight, her presence, her life. Fire had burned fences, smoke had left its mark. And she, soaked, tired, vigilant, stood unbroken. Smoke from the burned fence lingered in the air, curling around the edges of the house like a restless spirit. Clara May moved slowly toward the well, her fingers tracing the rim, cool stone against her palms. "Open it," she said, voice steady but tense. Caleb stopped behind her, arms crossed, watching. "No," he said. "It's not time." She stepped closer, glare fixed. "Open it." Silence stretched. Then he reached for the lock, the metal clicking open with a slow, deliberate turn. She bent to peer inside. The well wasn't empty. Charred letters, a wedding ring blackened with age, and a rusted sheriff's badge lay in the shadows, remnants of stories that refused to die. Clara May picked up the ring, feeling its weight, imagining the hand that had worn it. Caleb's voice broke her thoughts. "She didn't fall," he said softly. "She was pushed." She looked up at him. "By who?" "Men who thought she talked too much," he replied. "And you stayed?" His eyes were dark, unreadable. "I stayed," he said. Clara May sank to her knees beside the well, tracing the charred edges of letters with her fingertips. The paper cracked beneath her touch. "I won't die quiet," she whispered. Caleb knelt beside her. "Good," he said. His hand hovered near hers but didn't touch. Respect, she realized. Not ownership. The well became more than stone and shadow. It was memory, betrayal, unfinished stories, and survival. A symbol of everything they were fighting against. Your wife? Clara May asked, voice barely audible. She protested land seizures, Caleb said. The governor's nephew was involved. He glanced away, staring down the shaft of the well. The sheriff dismissed it all. Said it was accidental. I didn't. Her chest tightened. She thought of her father, the contract, the papers that had tried to claim her. History was heavy here. And it wasn't done with them yet. The wind rose suddenly, rattling the windows, rattling the shutters, carrying with it the faint smell of smoke from the fence, of dust from the road. Clara May shivered, gripping the stone rim of the well. They don't want wives, she said, they want witnesses who don't speak. Caleb's eyes met hers. Then we speak, he said. Even if it costs us everything. Her lips pressed together. She knew they were right. Their voices, their choices, were now weapons sharper than guns or fire. They rose from the well together, both silent for a moment, listening to the land. Distant engines hummed faintly over the ridge, a reminder that threats were patient. Always patient. We'll need to fortify, Caleb said. We'll need to be ready. Clara May nodded. We need to. Make them afraid, she said. Not me. Them. Caleb's gaze swept across the horizon, hand resting lightly on a rifle. We'll do it, he said. But not today. Today, we survive. Evening descended slowly, fog rolling back over the fields, hiding the road, hiding the world. Clara May moved through the house, checking windows, doors, locks. Caleb followed silently. She realized the land itself felt alive, aware of every footstep, every movement, every heartbeat. Some memories lingered in the wood, in the stone, in the metal of the gate and the rusted badge. Every shadow held a story, every echo a warning. And every choice mattered. Caleb's voice broke the silence again. They'll test you, he said. And if I falter? Clara May asked. He looked at her, steady, unwavering. Then you will not, he said. Words blunt, precise, heavy with truth. She felt the weight of the night settle around them, thick and suffocating, but also steadying. She wasn't free yet. Not completely. But she had begun to stand on her own terms. And standing was everything. Clara May sat near the hearth later, brushing soot from her hands, eyes fixed on the darkening room. Caleb sat across from her, rifle laid against the wall, watching. They'll come with more than papers next, he said. Fire, threats, lies, men. You'll see it all. She nodded. I'm ready, she said quietly. Not for the threats themselves, but for the choice to face them. Fear was no longer a chain. It was a tool, sharpened and kept close. Outside, the night pressed in, fog rolling like ghostly fingers over the fields. Clara May looked toward the well again, shadowed, ancient, unyielding. Caleb leaned against the porch post, eyes scanning the horizon. They'll test our walls, he said. They'll test our patience. They'll test our lives. Then we test back, she said, voice steady, firm. Her words carried more weight than any gunshot, more impact than fire. Caleb smiled faintly, approving but not softening. Respect was given, trust earned, and they were beginning to trust each other in the dangerous quiet. Later, in the small kitchen, they spoke of plans. Routes to the well, barricades for the house, signals for approaching engines, and fallback positions. Every word was blunt, efficient, stripped of decoration. No hesitation, Caleb said. No excuses, Clara May replied. They built their strategy like soldiers, but also like survivors. Every action mattered. Every choice carried consequences. And somewhere deep, Clara May realized she was no longer just hiding. She was preparing. Before sleep, she touched the rusted badge again, cold metal under her fingers. History, Caleb said, nodding toward the well. Don't let it own you. She exhaled slowly. I won't, she said. But she also understood that the past would always follow them, that memory had a weight that could bend the strongest back. They would need courage, sharpness, and patience to face it. Together, they were learning. She wasn't a victim. She wasn't property. She was a force in waiting. Outside, the wind whispered across the fields. Shadows moved. Fog rolled, and the night held its breath. Inside, the house breathed with them, memory and threat and survival all entangled. Clara May lay awake, listening. Caleb's presence nearby was steady, grounding, a reminder that trust could be real, even in the haunted quiet. The well, the fence, the burned letters, the rusted badge, they were all markers of history, danger, and truth. And they were ready to face it, awake and unflinching. The morning was sharp, the air brittle with frost, and the road that led to the ranch looked too long, too empty. Clara May had barely slept. Caleb was already outside, inspecting the fence lines, hands resting on the worn wood of the gate. Then the engines came, slow at first, deliberate, rolling over the hills like thunder. Clara May's heart thudded. "They're back," she whispered. Caleb didn't look at her. "They always return," he said. And from the road emerged the governor's nephew himself, polished boots, perfect posture, smile too calm, eyes too cold. He stepped down from the truck as though he owned the land before even entering it. "You look tired," he said, voice soft, condescending. "You look small," Clara May replied, not backing down. The air between them was taut, electric. Caleb stepped forward, arms loose at his sides but his presence solid. "She ain't property," he said. "Everything here is," the nephew countered, tilting his head. Clara May's hands clenched at her sides. "I am not property," she said, voice rising. "You think hiding makes you brave?" he asked. "I think refusing makes me free," she shot back. His smile never faltered. "You'll regret this," he said. "I already regret knowing you," she replied, each word measured, sharp as a blade. Caleb moved closer, positioning himself slightly behind her. "Your father's health is fragile," the nephew said. Clara May flinched slightly, a stab of worry threading through her chest. But she straightened, squared her shoulders. "He's your problem, not mine," she said. The nephew's smile tightened. "Your defiance is costly," he said, voice low, almost a hiss. Clara May didn't answer immediately. She wanted to, but fear and anger swirled, caught in her throat. Caleb didn't speak, only stood, watching, a wall between her and the threat. The nephew circled them slowly, boots crunching on frostbitten grass. "You've grown bold in my absence," he said. "Bold?" Clara May's voice was strong. "I've learned," she said. Caleb stepped aside, letting her speak. "I've learned that contracts mean nothing if I don't honor myself," she continued. "And I honor no one who thinks I'm property." The nephew stopped, considering, eyes narrowing. "And the rancher?" "Your protector?" he asked. "Not my protector," she said. "My partner. We decide together. You leave, or you face us both." The air was tense. The frost underfoot cracking like gunfire. The nephew's smile thinned. "You think words save you?" he asked. "They do when backed by action," she said. Caleb's hand rested lightly on a rifle, ready but unthreatening. The nephew's eyes flicked toward it, calculating, then back to her. "They will try again," he said. "They always do," she replied. Not a question. Not a warning. A fact. Caleb nodded slightly, a gesture of approval, not power. For the first time, Clara May faltered, thinking of her father, his health, the threat of punishment for defiance. The nephew noticed. "Fear makes fools of the reckless," he said. She swallowed. "And courage," she said quietly, "makes fools of the oppressors." Caleb didn't comment, but a shadow of a smile crossed his face. The nephew straightened, calculating one last time. This isn't over, he said, voice cold, controlled. Then he turned, climbed back into his truck, and drove off slowly, deliberately, leaving dust and silence in his wake. Clara May sagged slightly, relief and exhaustion flooding her at once. Caleb stepped closer, eyes softening. "He'll hurt them," she said, voice tight. "Yes," he replied. She shook her head. "I caused that," she said, guilt pressing against her chest. "No," Caleb said. "They did." Silence settled, heavy, weighted with memory and threat. The land around them felt alive, the wind whispering across the frost-bitten fields, carrying the echo of engines, threats, and the memory of fires past. Later, inside the house, Clara May checked the locks again, moving through the rooms, tracing her fingers over door frames and windowsills. Caleb followed silently, observing, his presence steady and grounding. "You know what they'll try next," he said, voice low. "Yes," she replied. "But I'll meet it." Her words were firm, unyielding. She felt a strange surge of strength, born from terror, from survival, from the understanding that she could act. Fear was no longer a chain. Fear was a tool, sharp and ready, held in her own hands. She moved to the porch as night began to settle, the wind biting at her skin. Caleb joined her. "You think this ends it?" he asked quietly. "No," she said. Her breath came in steady puffs, clouds in the cold night. "This starts it," she continued. "Every choice from now on matters. Every action. Every word. They'll test our patience, our walls, our lives. And we'll respond." Caleb nodded, eyes scanning the horizon, the ridgelines, the empty road that could bring more threat at any moment. Clara May's gaze drifted to the well, shadowed, ancient, unyielding. Memories of letters, of the burned fence, of chart papers, of threats and lies, pressed on her mind. Caleb's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, grounding her. "We'll dig when it's time," he said, voice low. "Not tonight." She nodded. There was wisdom in patience. There was strategy in silence. They didn't need to rush. Not yet. The night was theirs to understand, theirs to endure. She sat near the hearth later, brushing soot from her hands, letting the warmth seep in. Caleb sat across from her, quiet, watchful, rifle resting against the wall. "He'll be back," she said. "Yes," Caleb replied. "And we'll be ready," she said, voice firmer now, sharper, steadier. Her words were no longer a whisper of defiance. They were a statement, a claim on her own agency, on her life, on the land that had become her refuge. Caleb nodded again, approving, not softening, understanding the shift. The night deepened. The house creaked, boards settling with stories trapped in the walls. Outside, wind whispered through the fields. Engines were absent, but threats lingered like smoke, memory, and shadow. Clara May lay awake, listening to the quiet, feeling the land breathe around her. Caleb's presence nearby was steady, protective but not owning. The well, the fence, the burned letters, the rusted badge, they were all markers of the past, of threat, of endurance. And tomorrow, they would face more, together. But tonight, they were ready. For the first time since fleeing the locked door, Clara May felt the weight of fear lift slightly. Not gone, not absent, but controlled. She wasn't property. She wasn't trapped. She was standing. She was seen. She was real. Caleb's eyes met hers in the faint lamplight, a mirror of understanding. They didn't speak further. Words were unnecessary. They had survived fire, smoke, threats, and silence. And in that, they had begun to define themselves on their own terms. Night had fallen fully, dragging shadows across the ridges and fields, turning the ranch into a fortress of dark shapes and memory. Clara May moved along the porch, lantern in hand, scanning the distant road. Caleb followed silently, rifle slung across his shoulder. "They're coming," he said quietly. Engines hummed faintly on the ridge, almost imperceptible, like predators stalking. Clara May's stomach twisted. "How many this time?" she asked. "Enough," he replied. "But not enough to surprise us." His calm steadied her, though the pulse of fear still throbbed through her veins. The headlights appeared first, small dots cutting through the black. Then the shape of a sheriff's truck emerged, polished boots, gleaming badge, 3 men in tow. "Clara May," the sheriff called, voice full of authority, tinged with impatience. "You will come with us." Caleb stepped forward, placing himself in front of her. "Not today," he said, blunt, unmoving. The sheriff's eyes narrowed. "Step aside, Ward," he said. Caleb didn't move. The tension stretched taut, silent, and sharp. Clara May stepped slightly forward. "I won't go," she said, voice even, steady. "I said she won't come," Caleb repeated. The sheriff's hand twitched toward his hip, a gesture of threat, of claim, of law. Clara May's hands flexed, and she felt the pulse of her own power, not just the fear that had followed her for months. "You don't own me," she said. The sheriff blinked, annoyed, and repeated, "You're under legal contract signed by your father." "Not me," she said. "Then by your family," he pressed. "Not enough," she said. The words were simple, sharp, a knife in the cold air. The sheriff shifted, foot tapping, trying to assert dominance. "Ward," he said, voice low, dangerous, step aside. Caleb's hand rested on a rifle, steady but unraised. "You don't scare me," Clara May said. The sheriff's hand hovered near his badge. "Your words won't save you," he said. "Neither will your badge," she countered. Caleb's presence beside her was solid, a wall she didn't have to fight against alone. The headlights behind them cast long shadows, stretching across the frost-bitten grass like reminders of what had come before. The sheriff's voice rose. "Step aside, or face the consequences." Clara May stepped forward, lantern raised slightly. "We're not afraid of consequences," she said. "We face them together." Caleb nodded once. "You'll find that standing together counts more than contracts," he added. The sheriff's jaw tightened. He took a step forward. Caleb matched it, eyes fixed, steady. Clara May's gaze swung from him to the sheriff, unblinking. No fear. Only resolve. A deputy tried to flank them from the side, but a faint whistle carried across the ridge. Caleb's hand snapped to his rifle. "Back," he barked. The man froze, unsure. Clara May stepped forward. "I decide who enters this land," she said. "Not you. Not your laws. Not your badges." The words cut sharper than any gunshot. The deputy hesitated, then fell back, stepping away. The sheriff's face twisted in anger. "This is trespassing," he yelled. "This is law," she replied. "And I am life." The standoff lasted long enough for the wind to shift, carrying with it the faint smell of smoke from the burned fence, the charred letters, and the history that haunted this land. Clara May's fingers brushed the edge of the well nearby. Caleb's eyes caught hers, silently asking if she was ready. She nodded. The well, the fence, the burned papers, they were more than symbols. They were memory, threat, survival. And now, they were weapons, sharpened by presence and refusal. The sheriff, growing impatient, reached for a paper. "These orders, signed by the governor himself, demand your compliance." Clara May took a step forward. "Paper burns," she said quietly, but firmly. Caleb understood instantly. He reached for the edge of the hearth, holding the paper in place. Together, they dropped it into the flames. Smoke rose quickly, acrid and black, curling into the night. Clara May felt the heat on her cheeks. She didn't flinch. She was not a woman to be claimed by law, by force, by threat. The sheriff's face paled slightly, but he masked it with anger. "You're defying lawful authority." "We are alive," Clara May said. "Alive and unclaimed." Caleb's hand rested on hers briefly, a silent promise, we survive, together. The sheriff muttered under his breath, turning back to his truck, the men following reluctantly. Engines hummed faintly as they drove away, leaving dust and shadows behind. Clara May let out a slow breath, feeling her own heartbeat settle into a rhythm she recognized. Not fear. Power. Inside the house, Caleb moved silently, checking the locks, reinforcing the barricades. Clara May followed, brushing soot from her hands. They'll come again, she said. Always, he replied. She nodded. And we'll meet them. The statement felt good, true. Her voice carried weight now. It wasn't just a declaration. It was a claim. The land, the house, the well, the fence, they were hers to defend, her choices to make. She understood the cost, but she also understood the value. She was no longer the girl who ran from a locked door. Evening deepened. Lanterns glowed softly inside, casting shadows across old photographs, letters, and charred relics of the past. Clara May sat near the hearth, feeling the heat on her fingers. Caleb joined her. You've grown, he said quietly. I've learned, she replied. Silence settled, thick and comforting, carrying the weight of threat and survival. They were aligned now, not protector and protected, but two forces acting as one, aware of the stakes, aware of the consequences, but refusing to bow. Outside, wind whispered through the fields, brushing against the fences, carrying memory and threat alike. Clara May thought of the sheriff, of her father, of the governor's nephew. They would return, they always did. But now she had fire, and words, and presence, and choice. She was not theirs to claim. Not ever. Caleb's hand brushed hers lightly. We'll face them, he said. Together, she replied. Not words of fear. Words of action, of survival, of agency. They stood on the porch for a long while, lantern light casting shadows that twisted with the night. Engines were gone, but the world beyond the ridge remained. It was waiting. Always waiting. But they were ready. Clara May's gaze settled on the well again, dark, deep, unyielding. Memory, fire, law, threat, all of it condensed in its shadow. And she understood, the land held secrets, but she held power. Presence mattered. Agency mattered. Survival mattered. The night pressed on, heavy with fog, wind, and quiet threat. Inside, the house breathed with them, carrying memory, danger, and the first taste of resistance. Clara May lay awake near the hearth, listening to Caleb's steady breathing. She had survived the door, the contract, the fire, the sheriff, the nephew. And now, she was more than a girl who ran. She was a force, grounded in land, in choice, in defiance. The badges in the dark had failed to claim her. And they would fail again. The next morning, fog rolled thick across the fields, ghosting over the burned fence, the well, and the land that had become both sanctuary and battlefield. Clara May woke before Caleb, stepping quietly to the kitchen. On the table lay a stack of letters, crisp and yellowed at the edges, sealed with wax stamped in old, unfamiliar insignias. She picked one up, careful not to tear it. The handwriting was elegant, almost cruel in its precision. Who sent these? She asked, voice low. Caleb appeared behind her, eyes scanning the horizon beyond the windows. Not friends, he said. Enemies who think ink binds the living. Clara May broke the seal on the first letter. The words inside were sharp, almost theatrical in their threat. We will claim what is ours. You cannot hide forever. She read aloud, letting the words echo through the cold kitchen. Caleb moved to stand beside her, hands resting lightly on the counter. They always escalate, he said. First paper. Then fire. Then words. She nodded, feeling the weight of months pressing into hours. And if I respond? She asked. Then they escalate again, Caleb said. But you'll no longer be afraid. The letters felt alive, like small snakes coiled around her fingers, venomous in their precision. She tore open the next one. "The law bends for us," it read. "Obedience is required." Clara May pressed her lips together, anger flaring. "They think words can own me," she said. "They've tried everything else," Caleb replied. He gestured toward the well outside. "Some things," he said, "are better left buried until the right moment." She nodded, but her gaze lingered on the letters. Each one was a challenge, a provocation, a reminder that the past, the law, the men who thought they could claim her, were still circling. They worked in silence most of the morning, reinforcing the fences, checking locks, moving quietly through the house. The wind carried sounds from the ridge, distant engines, the faint hum of tires on gravel. Caleb paused, hand on the rifle, eyes scanning. "They're testing patience now," he said. "They always test patience before force." Clara May nodded. She could feel it too, the subtle tension in the air, the way the land seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next move. "I won't break," she said quietly. Caleb's gaze softened slightly. "I know." By afternoon, the fog lifted slightly, revealing more of the ridge and the empty road that could bring danger at any moment. Clara May returned to the letters, sorting them by tone, by threat, by intent. "They think these letters are threats," she said. "They're actually instructions," Caleb replied. "They tell us how to survive. If you read closely, you'll learn more than they intend." She studied the words, the curves of the ink, the choice of threats, the little details that revealed arrogance, impatience, weakness. Each letter became a map, each threat a clue. Survival was no longer blind, it was calculated, deliberate, chosen. The sun dipped low, stretching shadows across the porch, the fields, the fence. Clara May stepped outside, carrying a lantern and the letters. Caleb followed, rifle ready but relaxed. "We burn some?" she asked. "Only those meant to mark history," he said. "The rest we keep. Knowledge is protection." They set the letters carefully in a small pile near the hearth, letting the flames curl around edges, smoke carrying words into the night. The smell of ink, paper, and fire mixed with the cold air, carrying both danger and release. Clara May felt a strange satisfaction, seeing their threats reduced to ashes. The porch fell silent except for the distant rustle of wind and the occasional creak of boards. Clara May looked toward the well. Shadows pooled inside it, dark and deep, unyielding. "I keep thinking it holds answers," she said. Caleb leaned against the railing. "Some answers wait. Others punish if you take them too soon." She nodded, understanding that patience was part of survival, and curiosity, unchecked, could be dangerous. The well wasn't just stone and water. It was history, threat, and memory wrapped in a circle of shadows. The night grew colder. Clara May moved back inside, settling near the hearth with Caleb beside her. "Do you ever regret staying?" she asked. "Regret," he echoed. "Never. Fear is part of survival. But standing here, facing it, learning to control it, I don't regret." She nodded. "I think I understand now. The letters, the threats, the fires, they're tests. Not punishments." "Exactly," he said. "And we pass them every time." She felt a flicker of confidence, a fragile ember, growing in her chest. Not bravado. Not denial. Understanding. A shadow moved at the edge of the fields, faint, almost mist in the fog returning with night. Caleb noticed instantly. "Someone watches," he said, voice low, deliberate. Clara May moved to the window. "Could it be them?" she whispered. "Could be. Could be scouts. Could be curious neighbors. Could be more letters." He didn't specify. His eyes were steady, scanning the ridge, the trees, the empty road. The house felt alive, alert, the boards and stone holding memory and threat in equal measure. Clara May felt it too, the land, the history, the watchful danger. They remained vigilant, moving through the house, checking doors, windows, every possible entry. "We're not hiding," Clara May said. "We're ready." Caleb nodded. "That's the difference. Hiding waits for fear to claim you. Being ready owns the fear instead." She studied the letters one last time before placing them in a small chest, ready for the next encounter, the next escalation. Knowledge and action were now inseparable. Each threat would need preparation. Each shadow would find response. Later, they sat near the hearth, the fire low, shadows flickering across old photographs, chart papers, and letters. "Do you think they'll ever stop?" Clara May asked. "No," Caleb said. "But we don't wait for them to stop. We act." Silence stretched between them, heavy with understanding. She could feel her pulse steady now, no longer racing in panic but in anticipation. She was learning to measure danger, to meet it with clarity and precision, to stand without flinching. The night pressed on, thick with fog, wind, and the weight of memory. Outside, the fence lines held, the burned patches of grass were reminders of survival, and the well, dark and patient, waited for answers not yet needed. Clara May's gaze rested on it, unflinching. Caleb watched the ridge, the distant road, the shadows that moved beyond the lantern glow. They were both alert, aware, ready. The letters had been more than threats, they had been lessons. And they had learned. As the house settled, the fire crackled low, carrying shadows into every corner. Clara May lay awake, listening to the wind, to the boards creaking, to the memory-laden air of the ranch. Caleb's presence nearby was steady, grounding. They had survived paper, fire, threats, and shadow. The next encounter, the next letters, the next escalation, they would meet it together, prepared, unflinching, and aware. And in that, they were no longer victims. They were forces acting on their own terms, anchored in land, memory, and choice.